Good evening, everybody. It is just so good to be with you guys. It's just Scott and Kenny back with you for another Discovery Bible study.
Hey, everybody.
And as we want to remind you, as usual, the goal of this is not for you to watch and to listen, but for you to see how a Discovery Bible study works, so that you can turn around and do this on your own, do this with your family, do it with coworkers, or with anybody else that you can possibly study with. So Scott, let's start off by a little bit of gratitude, because that is always the best place to start. It's the best place to start the day and our Bible study. So, man, what is going on good in your life right now?
All right, so one thing that I thought of earlier, we've had a lot of storms here recently, and so I am super thankful to have a roof over my head, like a warm, comfortable place to sleep. But also kind of like brings up all the people who are homeless who don't. Mm-hmm. And so I've been praying heavily for them. Like, I'm thankful for my situation, but also want to help improve theirs. Mm-hmm. And so that's been like something that's a constant stream of prayer for me recently.
Awesome.
Well, how about you?
Well, last night was just a cool night, and just for context, it wouldn't be last night when you watch this, but Monday night, we got to our families, minus Brittany, she was working. We got to eat together. We definitely missed her, but my youngest daughter has just been having an awesome couple weeks, and she wanted to go on a daddy-daughter date last night, or it would have been Monday night again. And so we got to spend some time together. She selected going to Starbucks and then playing board games at the church, which was really cool. And there were so many blessings that came out of it, and just getting to spend some time with her. And but then also while we were at church playing Guess Who, that was her game of choice yesterday. Got to run into some of the people that were here for Celebrate Recovery, and Lennon just was a joy for them, because she just walked in and talked to them as if she knew them for forever.
She knows no strangers.
And I think to one of them, she even said, "I've never seen you here at church." And,
it's a good conversation starter.
I guess that's an invitation. But no, it was just so good as her dad to get some one-on-one time with her.
That sounds awesome.
Yeah, it was cool. Well, man, today we are going to be in Acts chapter 4, and we're going to start in verse 32. And just a reminder again that we have started Wednesday night Bible study here at the building on Wednesday nights, and we are studying the book of Acts, which is why we're doing this. However, this is not going to be consistent with where we are in the class.
He's way back in Acts 2 right now.
Yeah, we'll be there for this week again. So our Bible study here is going to progress a little bit slower, but I would encourage you, if you get a chance, come be with us, because we're doing some cool stuff with all the young people involved as well, and just having a blast.
Come ready for trivia night.
We do have some trivia at the beginning and the end.
Some Sour Patch Kids.
We throw candy at people, not to people, and so bring your baseball glove. All right, so let's go ahead and read. Scott, I'm going to have you read it, and then I guess I will retell it.
All right. So Acts chapter 4, verse 32. All the believers were one in heart and mind. No one claimed that any of their possessions was their own, but they shared everything they had. With great power, the apostles continued to testify to the resurrection of the Lord Jesus. And God's grace was so powerfully at work in them all that there was no need there were no needy persons among them. For from time to time, those who owned land or houses sold them, brought the money from the sales, and put it at the apostles' feet. And it was distributed to anyone who had need. Joseph, a Levite from Cyprus, whom the apostles called Barnabas, which means son of encouragement, sold a field he owned, and brought the money and put it at the apostles' feet.
Wow. That is an incredible section of scriptures that just describes that first century church, and there's a lot going on there, but just to sum it up or try to retell it, and Scott, you can fill in some details because I will miss some of them. But the people who surrounded, or the people who were the believers, the people who decided to follow Jesus at this point, were so just in love with Jesus that they took care of each other in a greater way. And there's some words in there that just stick out, like they had everything in common. They were of one heart and one soul. But then probably the thing that sticks out to me the most, or the thing that I would retell the most, is that they were taking care of each other sacrificially. And there was even one guy by the name of Joseph that had a field, so a piece of property, and instead of selling it, instead of selling it and profiting from it, sold it, took the money, and laid it at the apostles' feet so that more people can be taken care of.
That's pretty cool.
Yeah.
It'd be awesome to see people doing that today. I'm sure somebody has.
Oh, yeah.
But it's a really neat story. And it's not just a story, it's like actual history and how the early church lived.
Crazy. And I'm sure we'll get into some of it with the application and the questions, but that just sounds like a church that more people would want to be a part of.
Oh, absolutely.
And we'll talk about it with the questions. We won't get into it now. But man, looking at that section of scriptures, that verses 32 through 37, what do you see about God in those scriptures there?
Like the very first word of the section, it says all the believers. Mm-hmm. And like it seems like every single person was in tune with what God had in mind for them, and nobody was like turning against it. Nobody was rejecting God. Mm-hmm. Everybody saw God's plan as good at that point. Yeah. And so they decided to live with it, like even sacrificially giving, like you mentioned, like giving up their property and the money they made from it mm-hmm. to benefit everybody else around them. That sounds like a pretty awesome gift to give, and they're being generous as God was.
Yeah. Oh man, it's for me. It's one I take so much out for people, like what I learn about people. But looking at God, I think taking a step back and looking at these verses, I see about God in here that He has already blessed us with a system to take care of people. You know,
but there should be no needy people.
There shouldn't be, and it's not has nothing to do with a government authority or anything like that. But it was the church. Like the church that was established on the gospel of Jesus that just loved believers so much that they were taking care of each other. And it's like, God's incredibly wise. I don't think I need to say that.
Yeah.
Like, we know that. But God is so incredibly wise and has such incredible foreknowledge in knowing that He was going to establish the church and it was going to be full of people. And one of the most amazing ways for that church to grow was to have people who loved each other. And it's like that was His plan from the very beginning. And He did it so perfectly here in the book of Acts.
Yeah, it's not just loving in word, it's loving in deed, like in their actual lives, their actions.
And I know you'd mentioned a little bit earlier too, maybe before we started filming, that verse 33, that there was a great power. The apostles, with great power, the apostles were giving their testimony to the resurrection of the Lord Jesus, and great grace was upon them. That's so easy for me to skip over, but so incredible that there's that, like God again is providing what is needed. And it was the power that was there through the apostles. It was their testimony that was all about God, and it was the resurrection of Jesus Christ. Like He's given us everything we need. And like even with the church today, here at Orange Avenue, like we can try our best to devise better plans and that kind of thing. But God's given us what we need.
Yeah, if our plans aren't in tune with His plans, then they're never going to stand.
Yeah.
So we need to make sure we're walking with God instead of like being against Him.
Yeah. Yeah. And I know we're towing the line right now between what we learn about God and what we learn about man, because that happens
typical,
very,
right?
very often. But let me ask you one follow-up question real quick, Scott, with that. We talked about God kind of giving you everything you need and some other things. Do you find yourself experiencing God personally that way?
Where He is supplying exactly what I'm looking for.
Yeah.
There's definitely moments I look back on in my life and I'm like, wow, like I prayed and then like 2 seconds later God gave a radical answer. Mm-hmm. And sometimes I feel like I'm still waiting like to see how God comes through when He probably already has. I just haven't noticed it yet.
Yeah.
So sometimes, how do you feel about?
No, there's been so many times for me personally in the church, like without even asking, because a lot of times people are afraid to ask for help or make their need known. But I've seen so many people, and even myself, so many different times, even since I've been here at Orange Avenue for just a year now, of just people taking care of people. And like, it was a way, I wouldn't say it was like a supernatural way, but it was just God being so good and gracious through His people that has been able to help so many, and including myself.
Yeah, and something that's interesting with our church, like, not sure I'm allowed to share this, but like our giving has been better since we've been like in lockdown and quarantine. Like since people have been isolated and without jobs, we've had more and more people being generous and giving specifically to those who have lost. Yeah. And so it's like, it's cool to see people being more generous, for us to have more to give to those who are asking.
Yeah, he's pretty good. But moving on to the next question, what do we learn about mankind or people or yourself? Like, what do we see about people here in Acts chapter 4?
I love the character Joseph, the person also known as Barnabas, and the extreme generosity he showed here. He wasn't the only one giving. He's the only one recognized in this section.
Mm-hmm.
Well, this is next week maybe. But
Yeah.
like there's another story coming where people give, but they hold back. But I love to see his like extreme generosity where nothing has to be withheld, where everything is on the table.
Yeah.
And it's all going toward the good of the community. Nothing's being held back for himself.
Yeah, you're right, and seeing that about people, it's kind of convicting to me. And again, I keep wanting to move forward to the next one. How you put this into practice, and I shouldn't do that. But I'll be honest with you there. In people, I'll talk about myself and people. What I learned about myself. I'm not quite there yet. You know, I'm getting there. But if I have something that I can release, it is much more likely for me to think about what I can get for that so that I can go get something else I want or need. That's not in line with this. And I think a lot of people are that way. Like if I have something that is not mine or that is mine but I don't need it anymore, what do? We set up garage sales. We set up, and if the stuff that we really don't like, we don't want to bother with, we take it to Goodwill. But
The leftovers.
yeah, so in me, I see in learning in that I've got a lot of growth to do. And that maybe when the church comes together and we just take care of each other, like that verse 34, there was not a needy person among them, because as many of them were owners of lands and houses, and they sold those and they took the proceeds and brought them together. And we do that with our giving collection. We help so many people out here, even in the church, but it reveals to me, it shows me that in people, we still have a lot of work to do in that.
Yeah. I guess I need to get more properties so I can give more properties, right?
I guess, yeah.
That'll be my next prayer. Bless me so I can give more. That's not a bad prayer.
Yeah, try it out. So the third one there, how will you put this into practice?
Like I know we've talked a lot about the side of giving. And I'm like not to be boastful, but I find myself being a giving person. Like when the opportunity presents itself, like I don't have a lot of reservation. I want to make sure people's needs are met. But I do like the first part of this, just how the church is already together and how they had everything in common. They were one heart and mind. No one claimed any of the possessions for their own. Like they just wanted to share everything they had. I love that idea, and I want more and more people to be in my home, and I want to be in everybody else's home. Like I want to live like we're family.
Yeah. To
have that unity and that, I don't know, just that bond where we couldn't imagine living without each other.
Yeah.
That's one thing that I've always wanted.
No, yeah.
And I guess the more I'm here, the more I want that because it's so cool to live it.
Yeah, it's such a cool experience to live that way. For me, it's something that we've actually in our home we've experienced this just a little bit, and in real small ways. Like my wife is in the process of just like cleaning out clutter, and what that has done is fill up the garage with stuff
With clutter.
that we had talked about having this garage sale, which like I was talking about before, and she convicted me. She said, why don't we just set it up like a garage sale and we'll tell people, come take a look, and